Доброе утро, YouTube. Добро пожаловать в мое видео. Yeah. Believe it or not, doesn't work as well the second time. Let's talk about my favorite tool, the soldering iron. At the end of the video, I'll explain why it should be pronounced solder and not solder, like so many of you seem to think. But first, let's meet my ladies. You've got the basic from Harbor Freight. It does the job, but there's not much going on inside and it's easily replaced. The fancy new girl, very impressive, but a bit uptown for the downtown man. That's what I am. The kind of girl you bring home to your mother. Not the hottest or the fanciest, but it's got a steadfast quality that's hard to replicate. This is Rosie, 42, 39, 56. You could say she's got it all. Ain't exactly pretty. Ain't exactly small. But if you want to solder jumper cables and melt lead soldiers, she's your American girl. Doesn't get much more powerful than this. But maybe. Fresh from the land of publicly traded Soviet artifacts and surprisingly resilient sunflower farmers, I bring you eventually the sexy but potentially dangerous Russian mail-order bride. Rated for 220 volts, 50 hertz AC. Dual wattage, 100 watts or 50 watts. Cost? A price fixed 6 rubles. Was that expensive back then? I have no idea. Hear that? After hours of reviewing Soviet tools, I've learned what causes this all-too-familiar creaking sound. It's a traditional Soviet design element called character, or a rusty spring contact that's about to melt and catch fire to everything. Let's take it apart, test it out, and roll that dice. Despite being made in 1984, a good year, all the screws are slotted. A drive style we stopped using in our consumer goods in the 60s. Not that Phillips was much of an improvement. Should have gone with Robertson, but like many of my childhood road trips and long vacations, we got screwed by Ford Motor Company. Rusty. You see, Henry Ford used Robertson screws in his Canadian plants, and like most Americans who tried them out, he loved them. But he refused to use them unless Perciet, Lafayette, whatever Robertson, gave him full rights to make the screws himself, and he said, screw that. And so, thanks to aggressive capitalism, we, Americans, are stuck with this crap. And those smug Canadians get this. Not only does it hold itself on the bit, but it disappeared the entire screw. While, thanks to communism, our Eastern friends got stuck with this. Off comes the Bakelite housing and whoa! Look at that old school LED work light. 25 watts, 215 to 225 bolts. Looks like a E14 base. And like anything Soviet I've ever bought, it's broken. I've never tried to hide my love of Soviet switchgear. It's always so simple and crude, but inventive and effective. However, this is a dual wattage iron, and I don't see how that could work with a single pole, single throw switch like this. There's two of what look like diodes, but there's nothing as bourgeoisie as a polarity marking, so... Ah! Yellow paint. Yellow, the color of sunshine, smiley faces, healthy urine, and joy, is the color of positivity. But why diodes? And why two? Why? Because Ronald Reagan was right. The Soviets were crafty bastards. Here is a plot of a standard American and Soviet mains power supply. Ignore the larger amplitude on the Soviet one, because first of all, it's not how big it is, it's what you do with it. And second of all, the principle is the same here. Since diodes only allow current to flow in one direction, like a check valve, and AC voltage switches directions 60 or 50 times per second, sending power through a diode clips half of it. It's a redneck way to reduce power to the heating element. When you pull the trigger, the diodes are bypassed, and we get full power to the engines. Why are there two in same wise parallel? Because parts availability was a chronic issue in the late USSR, and I'm guessing two smaller diodes was easier to requisition than one wombo diode. Just a guess. What are you? My old nemesis. One of these days, you're just gonna see a Soviet-compatible receptacle mounted on my workbench. Ooh, or maybe you won't. Yikes. My first girlfriend was 6 inches taller than me and outweighed me by 30-40 pounds. This is basically how it went. This is how you turn on Soviet soldering iron, American pig. I just added that hum for dramatic effect. It's actually quiet as a church mouse. And it's running about the same temperature. It's above ambient, I guess. Not by much, unfortunately. Yay, July in Pennsylvania. Ain't melting solder with that. Oh, it's smoking, though. How? This is the wrong tool for the job. Look at this soldering iron melt solder. It's a natural. I need more sun. There we go. It's okay. He volunteered for this mission. Kinda sad, really. Look at it go. No better way to make lead shot than by melting toy soldiers, or in this case, train conductors. Mel Gibson didn't have any of those. If you can think of a better way to demonstrate a soldering iron's performance capabilities, let me know. Let's take a look at the classic American soldering gun. Old Weller. Made in the greatest state in the Union. Vastly different in terms of dimensions, weight, and engineering approach. Why? Wouldn't you like to know? The reason this weighs so much more is its beefy high-current transformer. You see, the Soviet iron just forces all 230 volts through a heating element inside the tip. Works just fine, and it saves on cost, complexity, weight, and decadence. So why does this use this transformer? 3 reasons. 1, a transformer air gaps the heating element from the mains. This isn't air gapped. The only thing preventing this metal tip from carrying 230 volts is this ceramic insulation in here. This 42-year-old Soviet ceramic insulation. How many times have you seen Team Rocket get zapped and burned at the same time and blast off just fine? It's not that funny when it happens to you, or whatever sensitive electronics you happen to be soldering. Second, take a look at the tips. This is a massive metal tip that takes longer to heat up than this simple copper tip. This bastard goes from 0 to f*** you in 2 Mississippis. How? Because it's flowing more current. Current is what makes conductors hot, not voltage. This thing somehow draws tons of amps from a tool rated for 1.2 amps input. There you go, 1.18 peak amps on the primary winding. Golly, it's heating up already. Look at it go. This is why you buy the AliExpress clamp meter. Operation 280 amps. Get the f*** out of here. If I may direct your attention, this Lincoln Buzzbox can melt steel like Velveeta, and it only peaks at 225 amps. The unnamed Soviet iron takes 2¼ minutes to reach a thermally equilibrated maximum of a slightly disappointing 446 degrees. See? The Weller reaches that in 23 seconds and goes on to a top speed of 517 degrees Kami before I shut it off, honoring the label's 1 on, 4 off rating, because I believe in sportsmanship. And look at that Pennsylvania quality, all hand assembled, presumably not by the Amish, who are the only people building things in Pennsylvania today. Tons of copper to spare. We have so much goddamn copper in this country, we run our stuff on 120 just as a flex. Listen to just how much nicer the switch is. Unlike the Soviet iron, which can only go from hot to very hot, this thing has off, low, and high. No need to keep it warmed up when you've got 280 amps to play with. There you have it. The Weller justifies its place in every dusty American garage tool bench. It's beautifully built, and despite having better everything than the Soviet Union, it's also managed to be beautifully simple and serviceable. And, contrary to most of these East versus West comparison videos, I think it actually looks prettier too. However, this tip style is pretty soft, not good for plunging, stabbing, or thrusting violently into the workpiece without bending. I've got an application where that's important. That is why I needed the Soviet one. Because if one more person in the comments criticizes my perfectly legitimate and very common East Coast pronunciation of the word solder, I swear to God,
I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron.